Welcome back to OLT, our license to travel. Say, when's the last time you adjusted your trailer brakes? For those of us with larger RVs and big old trucks, did you set the gain on your brake controller properly? Did you even know that there's a power adjustment in the menu? We didn't. And yeah, we found out the hard way. Today, we'll tell you just how to set up your truck's electric brake controller properly, and as a bonus, if you have standard non-self-adjusting drum brakes, we'll show you how to adjust them for optimum performance. We'll also share our near disaster because of my failure to learn how to properly adjust the gain on our truck and trailer braking system. You know that saying, God protects fools and drunkards? Well, I wasn't drunk. It was a lesson that my father had told me a long time ago that may have saved our lives. Now, once again, this is how we set up our rig, and it's not so much a how-to as it is a how we did it. So please read your manuals and talk to your trusted mechanic to learn to do it the right way for your truck and your rig. So if you have a setup similar to ours, we don't have disc brakes on our RV. Sure wish we did. As well as independent suspension. But even drum brakes are fine if you set them up properly and maintain them as you should. The next time you hook up for a tow, find a quiet level stretch of road where you can do this. The controls on our 2019 F450 are located here. There is a manual control level that sends power to the trailer's brakes and plus and minus buttons that adjust the amount of power sent, which is called the gain setting. In a traffic-free area at approximately 20 to 25 miles an hour, tow the trailer on a dry, level surface and squeeze the manual control level. A gain setting of about 6.0 is a good starting point for heavier loads. If the trailer wheels lock up, and that's indicated by squealing tires, reduce the gain setting with the minus button. If the wheels turn freely, increase the gain setting, that's the plus button. To adjust the trailer brake controller specifically for your trailer, set the type of brakes your trailer uses. Go to Features, now this is in our Ford F450, Towing, select an active trailer, then Trailer Brake Type. Choose the default electric/surge/none or electric over hydraulic. Next, select the trailer brake effort. Press the back arrow, then select trailer brake effort. Then choose low, medium, or high. Low is the default setting, which is recommended for most settings. Our RV is around 17,000 pounds, so we use high. One last thing, if you press the back arrow, you'll note that you can see what your trailer brake gain is set to. Like I said, this will work for our 2019 F450 Platinum. And get your manual out and research yours. Things change from manufacturer, model, and year. Do your due diligence. Next big question, do you even know what type of brakes you have on your RV? If they are what pretty much comes standard on most travel trailers and fifth wheels, then it's probably drum. But do you know if they are standard or self-adjusting? We'll explain how to tell in a moment. So, follow-up question. Have you ever adjusted your brakes since you've owned the rig? We're talking about your standard electric drum brakes with shoes and not pads. It's pretty easy, but if you don't want to crawl around under the RV and jack one wheel just off the ground or have no confidence in these skills, you may want to take it by a facility that'll do it for you. You can do it yourself and on the cheap. Ready? Here we go. This is just a preventative maintenance adjustment. The tools you'll need are as follows. A flathead screwdriver and a cheap brake spoon. You can get them for about $8 on Amazon. The jack out of your truck, they all come with one. Your wheel chocks and a piece of cardboard to lie on while under your rig. Block your trailer's wheels with chocks. Make sure your jacks are down if it's a fifth wheel, just so that the crazy thing can't fall on you. Jack one wheel up to where it just clears the ground. Be sure the wheel and tires spin freely. You might hear a very little contact, a scraping sound. This is normal. We'll cover how much drag or friction you should have. Too much is bad and too little is just as bad. Put that piece of cardboard down behind and under the wheel and drum. Bring your preferred tool. Here are two different spoons. The more expensive one on your right is actually harder to use than the cheaper one, which is thinner and can fit where it's needed better. Now look at the back side of the brake assembly near the bottom of the backing plate. Here's how you tell if you have standard or self-adjusting. You ready? It's pretty easy. If there are two oblong holes with or without rubber plugs in them, then you have self-adjusting and should not need any adjustment. If there is only one hole, then you have standard drum brakes and will need to check their adjustment. The other way is the tag on the axle, which may or may not still be there. If it's there and there's an SA anywhere in the serial number, it's self-adjusting. Oh yeah, keep those plugs and replace them when you're done. Help to keep the dirt out. What you're going to do next is put the tool in and you're going to feel for the star-looking adjuster wheel. Take a flashlight. You can actually see it. Now, one hole you won't feel anything, and the other you'll be able to feel the little teeth on that adjuster, and you can actually see it with your light. Put the spoon tool or flathead screwdriver in the hole and feel the teeth on the adjuster. Set it in between the teeth and flip the end of the tool up. That's the handle down to make your first adjustment. Do this a few times. You'll feel it move and hear it click each time. Kind of sounds bad, but you're not hurting anything. Every time you flip it up and cause the star to turn, you're making the brake pads expand and push a little tighter, closer to the drum. Now, while you're adjusting, you should spin the wheel some to gauge the contact. If you haven't done it or done it in a while, it may be way out of adjustment. Now let's say you do it a little too much and the brake seems to drag way too much. The tire is hard to spin, that's the drag. If it scrapes all the way around, it may be a little bit too much. Some axle manufacturers say adjust it till you can't move the drum, then back it off 10 times, 10 clicks. From my experience, I adjust it till I get a fairly good friction, then back it off, move the star wheel in the opposite direction until we get just a slight drag on it. What's really important is that whether you've got one axle or a tandem that's two axles, you want all the brakes adjusted the same, so they're grabbing equally. So stick the spoon back in, and instead of flipping the star up, we're going to pull it down to bring the pads further away from the drums. This is the hardest part to do. It can be a little difficult and may make a lot of loud noises, but you're not breaking anything. Go down a time or two and feel the drag again. If it's too loose, you have to go back up tighter again. Just a click or two at a time can make a big difference. When it drags and not overly so, and you're comfortable with it, then do all the others to about the same tension. It's not hard to do, but if you're uncomfortable with it, take it to a shop that can do it for you. That's a qualified shop. But it needs to be done. Number one, it will save you money. If they're not properly adjusted, you will overuse the magnet surfaces, which could cause hub loss, so then axle failure. This should be done every 3,000 miles once they're seated in. That's the brakes are seated in. If you have any doubt or haven't had a brake job done or inspection done recently, then get that out of the way first and do this preventatively every 3,000 miles. Now, if your brakes are self-adjusting, then have them inspected at least every time you have your wheel bearings repacked. More often if you're using the system heavily. Story time. So how important are the proper brake settings and adjustments? Very. Your very lives depend on it. Yeah, We found out the hard way. Let me tell you a little story about me and you. Well, at least me. I didn't have a clue. When we upgraded to our 17,000 pound 42-foot fifth wheel from our 30-foot bumper pull, we knew there was going to be a learning curve. Little did we know, boy, was that steep. I had owned and pulled many different types of trailers, boat, cargo, dump, etc. You know, but just short hauls. But all were bumper pull, and all were many, many years ago, well before all of our vehicles became computer controlled, so to say. I knew that with our substantial RV things would be different. It's just that I didn't quite have a grasp on how different. Being a trusting soul, I asked our dealer where we bought the RV to have their mechanic set it up so that there wouldn't be anything for us to do but drive away and only have to remember how to set it up at our first park. Well, that's what we thought they did. Our first, with this rig, our season number 2, our journeys with the new RV and truck was the southern states to the southeast and back. You know, there's not a whole lot of mountains to cross following I-10, but first time with our big rig and home behind us, and it was still nail-biting. The tell should have been when we found out that they didn't properly install the hitch. But that's another story. At the time, I remember telling Shelley it kind of feels like the trailer's almost pushing us at times. As well as another remark, I'm going to have to get this new truck's brakes checked. Seems like it's taken more room to stop lately. Silly, huh? Right there in front of my face and I couldn't see it. Must be worse at math than I thought. Can't even add 2 plus 2. We came back to Arizona no worse for the wear, and the shop said the brakes on the truck were fine. Our next season we were going north. Yeah, mountains. But I'd gotten accustomed to this leave more room stopping distance thing. Yep, had forgotten everything my dad had taught me about bigger rigs and braking. It will take a little more room, but not a whole lot more room. When we got into the Salt Lake area, we had our curbside, passenger side, kitchen slide out fail. We got a hold of Grand Design and they were able to get the parts to Windish RV in Denver if we could be there in a week. So off we went. Any of you ever drive I-70 into Denver from the southwest? We could have died. 11,000 feet, little to no guardrails, deeply rutted asphalt, and long steep grades. It was coming down one of those grades that nearly ate our lunch.
Ate your lunch?
I remember for the first time since we bought the rig checking the gain on the Ford's built-in controller. It said 3, thinking to myself, that's odd. Shouldn't it be higher? At that moment, something my dad taught me flashed into my mind. If I had trouble with the trailer swaying, just gently squeeze the manual brake control on the dash to engage the trailer brakes and it would straighten out. That thought saved our lives. Coming down that grade into Denver, the RV was literally pushing us. The truck would start to slow, but you could feel the trailer lurching us forward. Our truck brakes were overheating and the exhaust brake was helping, but not enough. And when I tried to slow us with the truck brakes, the RV would start to fishtail. Instinctively, I reached for the manual brake controller and began squeezing. What a difference. The rig straightened right out. I had sweated so much that we slowly pulled to the first chain-up pull-out and caught my breath and let the brakes cool. About a half hour later, we slowly worked our way down to flatter ground. That night, I was doing some heavy research on the internet, and the next day at Windish, I talked with some of the mechanics there in the shop who were amazed that the truck and rig were okay and that we had actually survived. With the rig repaired, that's the slide out, we hooked up and got on some quiet road and went through the procedure to set the proper gain on our brake controller. I don't even want to tell you how far out it was. You know what? Now it all works perfectly. Learn from my mistake, please. So hey, you can do us and this channel a big favor by watching another of our videos right after this one. That lets YouTube know that we have worth and will recommend us to more folks. We have a couple of suggestions at the very end if you feel so inclined. As always, please travel safe.